Hey everyone, host of Shelves, Jeremy Meyer here. If you like the podcast, I thought I'd recommend a couple others for you. If you want to hear more about unproduced scripts, check out Screenplay Archaeology. If you want to hear some other movie or entertainment-related discussion, check out the Entertainment Buffet podcast. If you're interested in some video game discussion, check out my friends over at the Darkcast and darkstation.com. Also be sure to visit some of our friends of the show, the Nerds and Marks podcast and 616 Entertainment. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shelved Film Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Meyer. So it's been a minute since I've posted an episode, which has kind of become the theme of every episode I do post. Things have just been incredibly busy in my life. My day job has kind of been ramping up, and then we got rid of some people and hired on some new people, and it's been, I'm the one that's kind of stuck training them. So it's, been a lot of late nights at work. I haven't had the time to even read the script I've been reading. It's kind of been making me do some thinking about the show. And, I hate to say it, at one point I was just like, maybe I should just shut it down. It's been a good run. The episodes will still live on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. But I don't want to shut it down. I love doing my show. I want to keep doing it. It's kind of time to start thinking about, what can I do differently? And I always wanted to kind of stay away from being a review show. But I think, I'm going to start incorporating some more review stuff. Every now and then I would review some stuff if I saw something that I was interested in and wanted to kind of share my opinions on it. Because, I love talking about movies, and as a writer, I love the screenplay look at movies. I love reading the scripts and seeing how they're changed and, learning more about screenwriting through reading the scripts and stuff like that. So I am still going to do the script episodes, but I think just to kind of get more episodes out there and get more content, it's pretty easy for me to just sit down and do a review. As I'm doing this now, I am in the car, so I always have that option of, car casts. So today I am going to, since I haven't posted an episode in a while, and, to kind of remind people that I'm still alive, still here, and that the show is still going. I was at a wedding for a friend of mine over the weekend. He's just like, so, is your podcast dead? And I was just like, no, it's just, kind of on hiatus as I'm waiting to find the time, and, so now I'm making the time, and I kind of just want to talk about some stuff that I've watched recently. Some of the stuff is a little older, because I'm going to talk Avengers Endgame. I never really talked Avengers after that came out. And then, some movies I've seen over the last month or so. And I'm going to start incorporating more reviews into the show, just so while I'm still waiting on having the time to get some script episodes put together, that there is still content coming out. And, I'm also working on trying to get some more interviews on the show. I have a couple people that I'm waiting to hear responses back from, of just scheduling. So, hopefully I can get some more of that going on, and those interviews lead to more interviews and so on and so forth. But, so why don't I just start, kind of work my way backwards here, and we'll end on Avengers. But some of the stuff I have seen recently, I saw John Wick 3 Parabellum, which I am a huge fan of the John Wick franchise. The perfect movies for Keanu Reeves. The first one, kind of a sleeper hit. The second one, I always see mixed opinions on the second movie. I personally love it as much as the first one. I definitely think while the first one is a more raw and serious movie, the second one, it's kind of these are ballets of violence, and the third one carries on in that tradition, but getting a little more gritty, kind of like the first movie. The second movie was very flashy, and the third one is flashy, but not as much as the second one. And I will say, my enjoyment of the movies kind of goes in order. Like, I think they're all great, but for me, it is in order of 1, 2, 3, and each one of these is just slightly less than the last one. And I will talk some spoilers here. I guess not. Okay, this isn't really a spoiler, but I will just say that the movie, my biggest issue with it is that, like the second movie, it doesn't really have an ending. It ends setting up for another movie, and all I can say is I hope the next one is the last one. Like, I love these movies. Sometimes I wish there was like 1,000 of them, but I'm also like, after the third one, I'm like, oh, I hope the fourth one is the last one, because I don't want them to just keep dragging this out, and I don't want them to like start getting bad, because like you start to see some cracks in the armor in the third one. I know there's probably plenty of people who like the third was their favorite, but for me, it was just like, it does the same thing the second one does. It adds a little more to the lore. It adds a little more to the character of John. Like, you learn a little bit more about like his past and stuff like that, like where he came from. And then, it's back to the action scenes, which the action scenes are all great. And, it's pretty fucking unbelievable how much damage he takes throughout this movie and just keeps coming back, especially for how old he is. It also looks like Keanu Reeves is maybe slightly slowing down in this one a bit. He's getting older. And I just don't want it to become like Taken, where they're like cutting out frames. I think Keanu's definitely still got some good years left in him, but I want this franchise to end on a high note, and I don't want them to just keep dragging it out. But John Wick 3 is another fucking awesome John Wick movie. I hope the next one is the last one, and I guess that's kind of all I really have to say about that. So after, another thing I did watch is, I was kind of just chilling on Netflix, and I pulled up a random like Netflix movie, just like, let's check this movie out. And it's not generally a like genre I would watch. It's more of like a romantic movie, but on the little more sexy side. It was a movie called Newness, and like the biggest name in it was Nicholas Hoult, who's he's a beast in the X-Men movies. He was in Mad Max Fury Road. He's done a ton of stuff. And it was actually like really good. It's a relationship drama movie. It's at the beginning, it almost seems like it's kind of a take on dating apps and stuff, but that part of the story gets dropped pretty quickly. It's like, oh, this couple meets on a dating app and blah blah blah, and it starts off as like a hookup and then becomes like a relationship, and you kind of get a long view of their relationship, and then they kind of hit that phase that most relationships do, where things start to not be as fun and interesting anymore, and they both end up having an affair. And then it becomes, they tell each other, and then it becomes like, how do we fix this? Like, they are in love, they don't want to ruin it, so it's just like, what do we do? And that leads to them kind of like having an open relationship, like basically like swinging. And it's a really fun, fun's not the word. It's a really interesting movie. It's really well acted. The direction leaves a little to be desired. There's some pretty odd cinematography kind of early on, like a lot of odd close-ups of just kind of like random parts of the face that I didn't feel like was real. It felt like, oh, I'm being close up to be artistic and not like actually saying anything with your close-ups kind of camera work. So that was a little distracting at first, but it does kind of like even out as the movie goes on. It's a really good movie. I recommend it. Again, that's called Newness. I think it came out in like 2018 or 2017, but I found it on Netflix, and I would recommend it. I don't want to spoil it, because that's kind of it's a relationship drama movie, so the only thing there is its story. But it's a worthy watch if you're in the mood for something like that. Again, not something I would normally watch, but for some reason, that's just kind of what I fell on. It's like, oh, the description sounded interesting, like, let's give it a shot. And, it was kind of, for the first, like, 10 or 15 minutes or so, I'm like, oh, am I gonna stick with this? Or, well, what's going on? But, I ended up, I'm glad I stuck with it and watched it, because by the end, I really enjoyed it. Nicholas Hoult is a really good actor. I don't know the actress's name. I think she's Spanish or something, like from Spain. or at least they say she is in the movie, and she has an accent. I'm not sure if the actual actress is or not. I think she is, though. But she was really good, and that what kind of carries the movie is the performances and the chemistry between the two main actors is, it's believable, and it really worked for me. So yeah, I saw that. My next one is kind of I'm not done with it, so I can only give my impressions so far, but I've been watching the 3rd season of Jessica Jones, which the first season of Jessica Jones is probably my favorite of the Marvel Netflix shows. I know a lot of people kind of feel that way, and most of them attribute it to David Tennant as the villain, who is one of the best villains in like any television show that I've ever seen, so I can totally understand that. But on top of it, I really like the characters of Jessica and Trish and all them. And season 2 was disappointing. I still enjoyed it, but what I loved about the first season is like, okay, she's a private detective and there is a case that she is working. Like, there's like detective work going on, and that is all completely lost in season 2. It's it becomes about her mom, and like halfway through the season, the sleuthing is kind of completely dropped, versus season 3 feels kind of back to basics with the franchise. We got a great villain he is just some dude, and he's just some dude that's smarter than her, and it's a serial killer. It's like trying to track down a serial killer. And, the first episode is very reminiscent of the first episode of the first season. It sets up these interesting characters and where they're at. And then it ends on, like, this super crazy mystery cliffhanger that kind of thrusts the rest of the season forward. And currently I'm only 8 episodes in out of 13. And I've been enjoying every episode. Like, the Marvel Netflix shows with the 13 episodes, most of them have a tendency to, like... there's like 3 episodes that could totally be cut out of this season. Like, most of these should probably be 10 episodes, but so far this one has utilized every minute of the season very well. And Daredevil season 3 was kind of the only other one where I was like, every fucking minute of this season was perfect and I wouldn't lose anything. And so far Jessica Jones season 3 has been kind of the same. So I'm hoping it keeps up, but so far, if you were a fan of the first season and kind of fell off on the second season, I would recommend maybe just go back and watch the last episode of season 2. You don't need to watch the whole thing. And jump into season 3, because it has been really great so far. One thing to say about this season is that, like, Jessica is kind of the one who has her head on her shoulders the most out of the whole cast, which is, saying something. But I'm really enjoying season 3, and it is the last of these Marvel Netflix shows because Disney unceremoniously just canceled all of them for whatever reason. And, it's a real shame. Some of them, maybe it's fine to see them go, but others were fantastic. And I wish they could have worked something out, but clearly that was not in the cards for whatever reason. But season 3 has made me feel like, oh man, I'm going to miss this. Like, before I was like, Daredevil was the one that, we wanted to keep around. And, I really wanted a 3rd season out of The Punisher, but, after Jessica Jones season 2, I was like, maybe it's best that they're all just going to go and we'll be left with our great memories. But now that season 3 is so good, it's like, I'm going to miss this. Like, why did it have to go that way? And I hope some of these actors and actresses get another shot at these characters, maybe in a movie or something. I think most of them are deserving of a movie. I would 100% watch a Jessica Jones movie. I would 100% watch a Daredevil movie with those actors. Please, Disney, make it happen. Okay, so the next thing I saw is a little Disney movie called Aladdin, which I took the wife to see. And so my wife, she wants to see like all of the live action Disney movies. Some of them I wasn't really interested in, but we've seen most of them so far. Cinderella and Maleficent I didn't particularly care for. I thought Maleficent was like kind of boring. Cinderella was like okay, but that just wasn't for me. But, you know, we saw Beauty and the Beast, which I actually really loved. I don't know. I've seen the old animated Beauty and the Beast, but not in years. So for me, the movie was kind of like the first time again. So I was completely engaged. You know, I really liked the production. You know, that movie made $1 billion, and it's definitely the one that's going to keep justifying a lot of these movies for a long time. But, you know, after that, we saw Dumbo, and I thought Dumbo was a bad movie. I didn't particularly care for it. I don't particularly care for the animated Dumbo movie. It's like only 60 minutes, but feels like 2 hours. It's very boring. And this is also kind of boring. Like, Dumbo was not great. Like, a lot of the cast I was just completely uninterested in. The story was completely uninterested in. Like, the best part was, like, the CG elephant was kind of cute sometimes. So Aladdin. I went into this movie with a lot of baggage. Aladdin is my all-time favorite Disney movie. You cannot convince me that any one of them is better than Aladdin. It has the best songs, the best characters. I love the animation. So I had a lot of expectations going into this movie, and obviously the big narrative was Will Smith as the genie looked really creepy. But I'm happy to report that Aladdin is totally okay. I mean, it's good. It's a good movie. It's not amazing. It's not perfect. They added some new songs in, which to me, most of them are aimed towards, making Jasmine a more powerful female character, which is fine. But the songs didn't fit to me. Like, the songs feel like they came out of Frozen and just totally do not jive with the old Aladdin songs. Like, they don't feel like they're from the same movie at all. So that was kind of like a sticking point for me. Like, it's like the songs are good, but it's like maybe they should have just saved them for a better movie, or a different movie. But the actress Naomi Scott as Jasmine was the highlight. Also, Will Smith as the genie was maybe the best part of the movie. So when he first came in, the first song is "Never Had a Friend Like Me," and I was worried. Because that song, it felt like he was trying to do a bad Robin Williams impression, which is like nobody wanted that. He gets way better as the movie goes on. This is the first time in a long time where I felt like Will Smith just wasn't coasting in a movie. Like, he's very funny. They give the genie kind of his own storyline that was not in the original movie that I was a big fan of. And, they bring in an actress from SNL that I really enjoyed who plays, I wish I knew her name, but I unfortunately do not have it. But she plays Jasmine's handmaiden, and she's really great. I loved her in SNL, and she's really great in this. And her storyline with the genie is really fun. And, they change, some things here and there, but all the changes kind of make sense. The movie looks really good. Like, I love the design of everything, and those songs are still there, and some of them are not as good as they were in the original movie. Some of them are just as good. I wouldn't say any of them are better. A Whole New World is exactly what it needs to be. It's like kind of, they do kind of change some of the songs a little bit, but A Whole New World, it's like, you're not touching this one. You're gonna do A Whole New World the way it's meant to be. And that is, like, the best part of the movie, probably, for sure. As far as, like, scene-wise. I will say, like, Iago, I wish they just brought back Gilbert Gottfried, because it's Alan Tudyk doing the voice of the parrot, which he literally just talks like a parrot, but a parrot who clearly knows what he's saying. But he is just, like, repeating stuff and things like that. I was like, if you're going to have the bird talk and be as, smart as he seems to be, like, just go all the way with it. Just bring back Gilbert Gottfried and do Iago as Iago. Jafar is also just not that imposing. Like, the actor is, like, he's a physically imposing guy, but just his performance feels very one note, and he's too young and, like, hunky for Jafar, which I feel like kind of defeats the purpose of that character and his story in the original movie. And again, I understand, you're going to change things, you're going to make it your own, but, it felt, pandering and unnecessary to make it like this attractive, hunky guy. And, his performance was kind of one of the weaker parts of the movie for me. The main actor for Aladdin was good. He wasn't great, but, I don't think he's done a lot. They had a hard time finding someone who had all the acting and singing ability that they wanted, and I think this guy does a good job, but a lot of his emotional ranges feel kind of at the same place, and probably, could have done better. But I think it's a good movie. I think it is a good live action Disney movie. It has a fun style and flair to it that the original movie had, and they kind of keep present. It's funny. Will Smith is very funny. Like, again, it's so good to see him actually care and try. Like, I feel like the last 10 movies I've seen him in, he is just the most, he's kind of fallen into that Adam Sandler phase of just I'm not really trying, and I don't really look like I'm trying, and I don't really care. But that was completely gone in this movie. Like, I don't know, maybe it's the paycheck they gave him, maybe he's just a big fan of Aladdin, or maybe I'm just crazy about those other movies, but that's just the way I felt about him. Like, Suicide Squad was also another one I felt like he was putting forth some effort, but that movie did no one any justice. So it is what it is. But Aladdin, I say, it's worth checking out. You probably don't need to see it in the theaters. This would maybe be a good Netflix one. I'm not even sure if it's still in theaters at the moment, actually, but if it is, maybe just wait, but definitely would check it out. So okay, let's get to the main event, Avengers Endgame, and I saw it opening night. I wanted to put together a big round table of everybody I knew that saw it, and maybe I still will one day do a whole MCU kind of what's the word, where you look back at the whole series, retrospective, like an MCU retrospective. Starting at Endgame, or actually maybe after Spider-Man comes out. But, I didn't get around to it. I did it with Infinity War, and it was a lot of fun. I got oh, shit. Sorry about that. I got a couple of different people, for Infinity War, and, we talked about it and stuff like that. And I wanted to do it for Endgame, just didn't happen. So I'm just going to instead give my thoughts on the movie, which, of course, I really liked Endgame. So far, it is my favorite movie of the year. I will say just barely. While I liked Endgame, it is not my favorite Avengers movie. Infinity War is definitely the better movie. But what Endgame did was something that no other franchise will probably ever accomplish. And that's last for 10 years with a strong lineup of 20, 22 films, or however many it is. And deliver one of the most epic battles ever recorded on film. And you can sit there and say a lot of it's CG and blah blah blah, and you can look at things like Gladiator and what was that other fucking Braveheart and stuff like that, Lord of the Rings, oh, these are actually way more epic. Yes, from a technicality standpoint, more people and stuff, but it being CGI for a lot of it doesn't really take away from what it is. And comic books are a more fantastical medium, so comic book movies, I feel are allowed to be a little more fantastical as long as it's done right. And an Avengers Endgame is a case of it done right. It is very odd that the first hour is basically a comedy, and then at the halfway point it does get a little more serious. A lot of characters getting some good screen time, Hawkeye in this movie is really good. I know a lot of people kind of shit on Hawkeye throughout the franchise, but to me, his best movies are Avengers Endgame, Civil War, and Age of Ultron. I like him as a character, and I like Jeremy Renner's portrayal of Hawkeye. I know there was talk, they didn't officially announce this one, but there was talk of a Hawkeye Kate Bishop show for the Marvel Disney Plus stuff that they're going to do. But I know when they actually announced Disney Plus, I don't think that one was included. So we'll see if that comes. I hope it does. The opening scene in the movie when they show Hawkeye on the farm when his family disappears, it was actually really funny. I saw it at 1 o'clock in the morning, and there was a woman next to me, and like a family or whatever, and as soon as they cut to the farm and she realized what was going to happen, it was just her oh no, really quiet in the seat next to me, and that made me laugh. But yeah, the time travel stuff is fun. it works really well for that movie, and like, you know, they are very clear to establish their own rules of time travel, which you can probably poke a million holes in, but what this movie is it feels more like a road trip through the 10 years of the MCU, and like they're revisiting parts of other films, and that stuff is fun in like a Back to the Future 2 kind of way of like, hey, you know, we're in the background of some of these major moments from our history. And then you're also seeing things like, you know, what happened after Avengers when they were all posing at Loki, and then, you know, stuff like that. So that's really fun. The Hulk might be a problem for some people because they basically turned the Hulk into a comedy act for most of the movie, and he doesn't do a whole lot action-wise in the movie. But I like Smart Hulk, and, you know, Bruce Banner, you know, it is a really fun progression of that character. I do wonder if we will see more of him, but I guess we'll see in the future. But yeah, you know, it's all about the end of the movie. It's what everybody came to see. When you finally see literally every character in this final battle, like they even put Gwyneth Paltrow in the rescue armor and like have her involved in the final battle. And then, you know, I love their way of like Thanos, because they, you know, they kill Thanos in the first 10 minutes and then they bring him back in like a really fun way. You know, a little bit of it probably doesn't make sense of like how the two Nebulas in the same timeline is what leads him to find out what's going on, feels very forced of like, how do we move this plot along and get Thanos involved again? Didn't feel like it made sense, but maybe it does. But it was like one of the things that was like, all right, whatever. Like, we need this to get the plot moving. You know, it's the little nitpicks like this that, to me, make Infinity War the better movie. And also, you know, Infinity War is like the darker movie. It's the Empire Strikes Back of that universe, and that's kind of, you know, again, helps push it forward. You know, there's also Dad Bod Thor, which I loved. I had no problem with. I thought it was hilarious, and like, honestly, to me, it was like, this is clearly a man who has like fallen into the deepest depression of failure. And, you know, what I love is like the movie, you know, they kill Thanos in the first 10 minutes, and then we get a 5-year time jump of everybody just stewing and living in their defeat. And like, I wasn't expecting that, and that was kind of a lot of fun. And you know, it's interesting to see where the Avengers are at that point, and then watch them come back together to try to save the universe and bring everybody back. And, you know, the end is insane. Like, when you get that first scene of, you know, the three main Avengers fighting Thanos head to head, which is awesome. And then when push comes to shove and it's Captain America standing there with a broken shield against Thanos and his army, and then you just hear Sam, you know, on your left, and then all the portals open and everybody comes out. It's fucking insane to describe, like, how that feels to see in real life, and just to watch, you know, all these ones and zeros clash on a screen, but in like the most impressive form ever, like, imagined. And you know, kind of like the final thing I'll say about Avengers Endgame is Captain Marvel. I feel like she's a character that's so powerful they don't know what to do with her, and I feel like she does kind of fall into the same territory as Superman in the Justice League movie of, you know, she literally just gets like written out of the movie for a while and then shows up at the end and just kind of doesn't face a lot of opposition, and you know, like a little bit. And you know, it felt just like in the Justice League movie. Superman shows up and pretty much takes down the villain in like a few punches, and like the only reason the fight gets extended is because he leaves to go save some people. And you know, it's just like, oh, okay, like, you've created this character, which I loved the Captain Marvel movie, and I love the Captain Marvel character and Brie Larson, and I love that they gave her the haircut in the movie. It's just like, yeah, it feels like you don't know how to incorporate this character overall into the universe. Hopefully they get that better. You know, I know there are a few things that feel a little tacked on in this movie, that like last minute, like, oh, you know, this happened in this other movie and we didn't know. So now we gotta like incorporate that into our movie. I will say it was great to see Korg and Meek again from Thor Ragnarok. Is like my favorite part. I love those characters. I hope they get a new movie. I secretly hope they're in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 because it looks like Thor is going to be in that now. And I lied. I said that was going to be my last thing. I have one more thing to say. I like that there were meaningful deaths. I was worried that everything was just going to work out just fine for everybody. But obviously, Tony Stark dying, Black Widow dies, Vision doesn't come back. I feel like these are all important deaths. Like, there need to be consequences. As far as we know, like, Loki's still dead. Technically, Gamora was still dead, and it's like a different Gamora now in this universe, which is going to make Guardians 3 really fun. Rocket Raccoon's still one of my favorite characters, and I love we got a lot more Rocket and Thor together. So it's going to be really fun to see that with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I did see Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is apparently going to be the end of, like, Rocket's story, which makes me kind of sad because I want a million movies with Rocket Raccoon. Avengers Endgame. To me, it was like a 4 out of 5. It's an incredible piece of cinema that isn't 100% cohesive, but is a great fucking time. And I've only seen it once so far. I would have a lot more nuanced things to say if I had seen it like 4 times, like some of my coworkers and stuff. But unfortunately, it's only been the one time. I am eagerly awaiting the Blu-ray. I did get a gift card. As I'm recording this, tomorrow is my birthday, and I got a gift card for my birthday for an AMC with like actually quite a bit of credit on there. So I might just use that to be like, here's an excuse to go see Avengers again. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's episode. A little review stuff. I want to do some more reviews in the future. Obviously, when Spider-Man comes out, I might sit down because all my coworkers are going to see it. Maybe we'll sit down, review Spider-Man, and then maybe do an MCU retrospective. It's been a while since I've had a guest. I'd like to have a guest again. I'll definitely be seeing Lion King, and maybe I'll get my wife on to, do a review for that. Excuse me. She's a big fan of these Disney live actions, and she likes to review stuff on the podcast. So maybe I'll bring her in for some reviews when we watch these Disney movies. I know Maleficent is also coming out in like November, so maybe we'll do that one as well. But that's going to be it for today's episode. So, sorry it's been taking so long to get my next script episode out, which I will tell you right now, the script I am reading is Batman 2 by Sam Hamm, who, Sam Hamm wrote the first Batman movie. I think Tom Mankiewicz did a version of that. I'm going to have to figure out the timeline of all this stuff, but I will definitely get that all worked out before I record the episode. But yeah, reading a Batman 2 script, the one that was written before Batman Returns was finalized. And it's been interesting so far, but it's just been so slow moving because of work and like, I work long hours. I get home and it's kind of like, I have enough time to get ready and go to bed and wake up tomorrow for work. So that's kind of been my issue. I'm going to get a solid week here of like some normalcy. And then it's like just back into it the next week because we have our 4th of July sale. So maybe if I'm really diligent this weekend, I can get an episode recorded, but I'm not going to promise anything because it's also my birthday this week and celebrating on the weekend, so that might get in the way. But Batman 2 is probably going to be my next one. I have a couple other lined up. Like I have a Mortal Kombat script I want to read. I know I've already covered a Mortal Kombat, but this is one for a movie that's, supposedly coming out and has been a little rewritten. So, and then there's also some other ones, but yeah, that's going to be it for today's episodes. Be sure to, like and subscribe, review, and all that business. And I will be talking to you very soon.